Simone Davis, I found out it isn't you. Your husband is here with a woman who looks like you. The voice on the line was familiar, but I couldn't immediately place who it was. My head was throbbing from lack of sleep. Serenity, my baby, hadn't let me sleep all night again. Now, halfway through the afternoon, I was barely holding myself up. "I'm sorry, who is this?" I asked, simultaneously trying to wipe up the oatmeal my 4-year-old Nova had just smeared across the kitchen table. For the 10th time, she'd refused to eat it. "It's Aisha Green from Metropolitan Trust and Savings, the downtown branch. Do you remember me?" Aisha. Of course I remembered her. 5 years ago, I had accidentally saved this young black woman from getting fired and facing criminal charges by proving that her boss, not her, had stolen the money. Since then, we occasionally ran into each other at the bank. She always smiled at me like an old friend. "Yes, Aisha, I remember. What's wrong?" A long silence hung on the line. I heard Aisha take a deep, labored breath as if gathering courage. "Ms. Davis, I'm breaking every rule right now. I'll be fired if anyone finds out I called a client with this information. But I owe you. You saved my life, my career, everything back then." My heart jumped. Something in her voice made me drop the rag and straighten up. "Talk to me. Your husband is here, at the bank, with a woman." I couldn't help but let out a small, bitter laugh. "Aisha, that's impossible. Damon is out of town on a business trip in Atlanta. He left yesterday morning. He's supposed to be back in 4 days." "Ms. Davis," Aisha's voice trembled, "the woman, she is you. I mean, she says she is you. She's wearing your coat, the beige cashmere one, and carrying your handbag. She even presented your driver's license." The world froze. I stood in the middle of the kitchen, drenched in the weak autumn light, and felt a coldness rise from my feet to my chest. "What did you say?" "She looks like you, very close, the same haircut, the same hair color. But I know you, Ms. Davis. I've seen you dozens of times. This isn't you. It's professional makeup or I don't know what, but it is definitely not you." "What are they doing?" My voice sounded foreign, mechanical. "They are trying to liquidate everything from your accounts, everything, and reassign the general power of attorney. They've been in the conference room for 2 hours now. There is a whole folder of documents. And—" Aisha stumbled. "Finish it." "Your mother is with them, Vivian Hayes. She's signing papers as a witness." The phone nearly slipped from my fingers. Mom, my mother. "Get here right now," Aisha urged. "It's bad. I can't explain over the phone. Get here before they finish. I'll try to stall." She hung up. I stood there, phone in hand, looking at the smeared oatmeal, trying to process what I had heard. My husband in a bank with a woman pretending to be me, and my own mother right beside them. I am 40 years old. 15 of those years I gave to my profession, and 10 of them to the man I called my husband. I bore him 3 children. I gave up my career when he said the family needed a mother, not a working horse. I signed every paper he slid in front of me without reading it, because I trusted him, because I believed him, because I was too exhausted to think. And all this time, he was— Nova tugged at my jeans. "Mommy, I want a cartoon." I looked at my 4-year-old daughter, a tiny copy of her father, with the same shrewd eyes and pouty lips, and suddenly I clearly saw her growing up to be the same kind of manipulator if I didn't change things now. "In a minute, sweetheart. Just a minute." I put on a movie for her, checked that Serenity was sleeping in her crib, and called my neighbor, Ms. Carol Jenkins, who sometimes helped with the kids. "Carol, I need to leave immediately. Emergency. Can you watch them for a couple of hours?" Thank God, Ms. Jenkins didn't ask unnecessary questions. 15 minutes later, she was walking into the apartment, and I, still in my old jeans and stretched-out T-shirt, with unwashed hair pulled back in a ponytail, was calling a rideshare. In the car, I tried to pull my thoughts together. A financial analyst. That's who I used to be. Before the maternity leaves, before the sleepless nights, before the constant, "Mommy, Mommy, Mommy." I used to close multi-million-dollar deals. I could find a loophole in any document. They called me the X-ray, for my ability to find errors and manipulations in reports that others considered flawless. Then I became a mother, and all of that seemed to vanish. It dissolved into baby cries and dirty diapers. No, it hadn't dissolved. It was just dormant. And now it was waking up. I started to remember. The beige cashmere coat, the one the woman was wearing at the bank, disappeared a month ago. Damon said we must have forgotten it at the dry cleaners. I believed him. My handbag with my documents. 2 weeks ago, Damon lost it while supposedly moving things in the car. He later found it, but the ID looked somehow different. I convinced myself I was mistaken. My mother started calling strangely in recent weeks, asking about my health, my mood, if I was tired of the kids, if I wanted a break. I thought she was being caring. It turned out she was preparing the ground. The car pulled up to the bank. I paid the driver and got out, but I didn't go in through the main entrance. I called Aisha. "I'm here. How do I get in without them seeing me?" "Service entrance around back. I'll meet you." 5 minutes later, I was following Aisha, a young woman with dark hair and serious eyes, up the staff staircase. "They're in conference room A," she whispered as we walked. "I took them to the security room. They have monitors. You can see everything." The security room was small, stuffy, and smelled of stale coffee and body odor. On the screens were multiple angles of the conference room, and I saw him. Damon, my husband, the father of my children, sat at the head of the table in an expensive suit I'd never seen before. He was relaxed, smiling, exuding the confidence of a successful businessman. Next to him was the woman, in my coat, with my bag, with my hairstyle. But younger, better groomed, more polished. This was the version of me from 5 years ago, before my third baby, before I stopped taking care of myself. Across from them was my mother, Vivian Hayes, 65, in a fancy dress with a neat hairdo. She was signing papers without lifting her eyes, nodding at Damon's words. There was one more person. Tiffany, Damon's sister, divorced, childless, a real estate agent. I always sensed she disliked me, but I never paid it any mind. Now Tiffany was arranging documents with the businesslike air of a person accustomed to such operations. "Aisha," I said quietly, "I need the transaction history for all my accounts for the last 3 years, and a list of every power of attorney filed in my name." She nodded and slipped out, and I stayed, watching the screen. Damon stroked the other Simone on the back. An intimate gesture, the familiar touch of a man doing this not for the first time. Something broke inside me, and then something clicked. I am a financial analyst, the best in my division, and now I will do what I do best: gather information, analyze, find the weak spots, and hit them hard. Aisha returned with a thick folder of printouts. I started reading quickly, professionally, making notes with a pencil she handed me. What I saw made my blood run cold. Over the past year, $800,000 had disappeared from my accounts. Small transfers of $10,000 at a time to the account of Tiffany Evans Consulting, LLC, my husband's sister's business. 3 months ago, a power of attorney was executed, granting the right to sell our house on 42nd Street, Midtown. I did not remember this. I did not sign this. A month ago, a loan was taken out in my name for $500,000, secured by our lake house in the Pines Estates. 2 weeks ago, the beneficiary on my life insurance policy was changed. It was no longer the children, but Damon personally. I pointed to the line on the statement where the power of attorney for the house was signed. Aisha checked the system. It was done at the downtown branch on Peachtree Street. You were personally present, according to the security cameras. Show me the recording. Aisha found the archive. On the screen, a woman in my clothing, viewed from the back. She was signing papers, never turning toward the camera. Damon was next to her. "That wasn't me," I said. 3 months ago, I was in the hospital for 2 weeks dealing with mastitis. I have the discharge papers." Aisha went pale. "This is document forgery, wire fraud, and grand larceny." "This is only the beginning, Aisha. Only the beginning. I kept digging. I called an old colleague in the analytical department of my former company. I asked him to unofficially check the financial health of Evans Automotive Group, my husband's business. The answer came in 15 minutes, and it was devastating. Damon's company was bankrupt. Debts to suppliers, unpaid loans, lawsuits. Damon had been hiding it for a year. He wasn't opening a new service shop in Atlanta. He was hiding assets from creditors, and all those assets were listed in my name. I understood the scheme. Damon had used me as a shield for years. When things were good, he was the successful businessman. When problems started, he transferred everything to me, so creditors couldn't touch it. And now he was moving the liquid assets to his sister so that after the divorce, he could leave me with the debt and zero assets. Aisha, I looked at her. The woman who's pretending to be me. Can you find out who she is? Aisha went to check. She returned 10 minutes later with new information. Jasmine Wells, 28 years old. She is listed on the payroll of Evans Automotive as an office manager. Over the past 3 years, her account has received over $600,000 in transfers from your husband. And? Aisha hesitated. A month ago, she filed for maternity coverage. The mistress. The pregnant mistress. While I was birthing Damon's third child, while I was up all night with the baby, while I was turning into a shadow of myself, he was building a new life with another woman. 3 years. Their affair had lasted 3 years. I stood up and left the security room. I needed to be alone, just for a minute. In the restroom, I looked at myself in the mirror. Dark circles under my eyes, overgrown roots, cracked lips, wrinkled t-shirt. I remembered Damon saying to me a month ago, "Simone, have you looked at yourself? You look like the housekeeper. I'm embarrassed to take you out to dinner." I thought he was right then. I'd let myself go. I was to blame. Now I understood. He was doing it on purpose. He isolated me from friends, refused to hire a nanny, convinced me I was selfish for wanting to go back to work. He exhausted me physically and emotionally so that I wouldn't notice him stealing my life. My phone vibrated. A message from Miss Carol Jenkins. "Everything's fine, sweetie. The children are asleep. No need to rush." The children. My children. If Damon finished his plan, I would be left with nothing. No money, no home, no job. And he would have the money, the house, the cars, the young, pregnant mistress. Worst of all, with my mother as a witness to my supposed incompetence, he could try to take the children too. No. I straightened my back, splashed cold water on my face, looked myself in the eyes, and saw something there that had vanished years ago. Rage. Cold, calculating, professional rage. I went back to the security room. "Aisha, I need your help, and I need you to trust me." "Anything, Ms. Davis." "Call the bank's internal security. Tell them you suspect fraud using stand-ins. Tell them to be ready, but not to intervene yet." "Okay." I pulled out my phone and called Lena, the only friend who'd stayed with me since my old job, a family law attorney. "Lena, I have an emergency. Husband-mistress fraud. I need an injunction on any operations involving our real estate, right now." "Simone?" Lena's voice was shocked. "Damon? Do you have proof?" "Plenty. I'll send you everything. Send it. I'll have the papers ready in an hour." I sent her photos of the statements I'd taken on my phone and then turned back to the monitors. Nothing had changed in the conference room. Damon was still talking to the manager, smiling his charming smile. Jasmine, the woman pretending to be me, sat next to him, playing the part of the tired wife and mother. My mother was signing another paper. Then I saw Mom stand up and leave the conference room, presumably to go to the restroom. I made my decision. "Aisha, keep watching. If anything changes, call me." I left the security room and walked toward the women's restroom. My mother was standing by the mirror, adjusting her makeup. When she saw me in the reflection, she dropped her lipstick. "Simone, how are you here?" "Same question for you, Mom. What are you doing in a bank with my husband and his mistress?" Mom tried to compose herself. "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just helping Damon with some documents. He said you asked me to." "Mom," I stepped closer. "Look me in the eyes. That woman in there is not me. You know that. You are signing papers knowing this is fraud. A pause. Mom looked away. You don't understand. Damon said you're sick, that you have postpartum depression, that you're acting strange, that you need help. He showed me some of your messages. Strange messages. You wrote that you wanted to leave, abandon the children. Mom, that's fake. I never wrote that. He fabricated the messages so you would believe him. Mom pursed her lips, a familiar gesture that meant, I don't want to hear this. Simone, maybe you really do need a break? You don't look well. Damon is taking care of you all. Damon has been supporting his mistress for 3 years with my money. She is pregnant with his child. And right now, he is transferring all our joint assets to his sister to leave me and my 3 children on the street. Mom went white. That's not true. Come on, I'll show you. I took her hand, the way I used to when she walked me to school, and led her to the security room. On the monitor, Damon stroked Jasmine's cheek. Intimately, habitually. The way a man touches a beloved woman, not a random stand-in actress. Mom watched the screen and slowly sank onto a chair. He never looked at you like that, she whispered. I know, Mom. Because he doesn't love me. He never did. I was an investment, a convenient wife who would have his children and ask no questions. And now he's writing me off as a loss. Aisha showed her the statements, transfers to the mistress, the apartment deeded to Jasmine, the maternity documents. Mom cried. For the first time I could remember, truly cried. Not manipulative tears, not for effect. She just cried like a person who realized they had made a terrible mistake. I didn't know. He spoke so beautifully. He said he was doing it for his grandchildren, that you would thank him later. Mom, I sat next to her, you can still fix this. You need to tell the truth, that he misled you, that you didn't know about the stand-in woman. They'll arrest me. No. If you become a witness, I can arrange it, but I need your help. I need my mother. A long pause. Mom wiped her tears, looked at me. In her eyes was something I hadn't seen in years. Shame. Real shame. What do I need to do? I looked at my watch. 40 minutes had passed since I arrived. In the conference room, Damon and Jasmine were finishing the documents. Tiffany was stacking papers into a folder. They thought they had won. My phone vibrated. A message from Lena. Injunction secured. Filed an emergency motion. All real estate transactions are blocked. Effective immediately. I smiled. It was not a kind smile. Aisha, I said, call the conference room. Tell them there's an issue with a transaction that requires additional verification. Hold them for 20 more minutes, and then I go in. 20 minutes is a long time when you know what to do, and a very short time when your fate is being decided. I stood before the conference room door, feeling my heart beat hard, echoing in my temples. Behind me was Aisha, the bank's security guard, Officer Jackson, a large man with alert eyes, and my mother, pale but resolute. I looked at myself in the reflection of the glass door. An exhausted woman in old jeans and a wrinkled t-shirt, no makeup, with messy hair. The perfect contrast to the polished doll sitting inside, wearing my coat. But I knew what they didn't. Real power isn't in clothes or makeup. Real power is in the truth, and in the documents lying on my phone. I pushed the door open. The conference room froze. It was like a movie when someone hits the pause button. All movement ceased, all sound stopped. Damon was standing by the window with his phone in his hand. When he saw me, the phone slipped through his fingers and clattered onto the carpet. I had never seen that expression on his face before, a mixture of horror, confusion, and something like a cornered animal. Jasmine, the stand-in, jumped up so fast she knocked over her chair. Without my coat and bag, her image completely fell apart. She was just a young, frightened girl in a tight red dress, totally unsuitable for the role of a tired mother of 3. Tiffany clutched the folder of documents to her chest like a shield. Her eyes darted between me and her brother, searching for a clue on how to react. The bank manager, a young man in a sharp suit, looked from the woman in the expensive coat and professional makeup to the woman in the home clothes with dark circles under her eyes. His face stretched with incomprehension. "What? What is happening?" he asked. "Hello, Damon," I said calmly. Surprisingly calmly, considering the hurricane raging inside me. "How was Atlanta? Did you fix a lot of cars?" Damon opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. In 12 years of marriage, this was the first time I had ever seen him speechless. He, who always knew what to say, who could persuade anyone to anything, stood there silent, like a fish on the shore. Jasmine backed up toward the wall. "Damon, you said she was at the lake house. You said everything was under control." "Shut up," he hissed. But it was too late. The manager was already beginning to realize that something was terribly wrong. Damon recovered first. He was always good at quick adaptations. That's what I had once loved about him, or thought I had. "Simone, honey?" He took a step toward me with a smile I knew too well, the everything's fine smile, the I'll explain everything now smile. "How did you get here? I thought you were with the kids." "Stop right where you are," I said. He stopped, as if hitting an invisible wall. I walked to the table and picked up one of the papers that hadn't been put into the folder yet. "General power of attorney to manage all my accounts," I read aloud. "Consent to sell the house at 42nd Street, Midtown. Waiver of rights to the lake house and the Pines Estates." I looked up at my husband. "Is this what I think it is, Damon? Or are you going to explain to me that this is just some misunderstanding?" "It's for the business," he said quickly. "A temporary measure. I have creditor issues. You know how tough things are right now." "I don't know, Damon. You didn't tell me." "You told her." I pointed to Jasmine, who was pressed into the corner, looking like she wished the floor would swallow her whole. She's just an employee." Damon tried to smile, but it came out crooked. "An employee who is 4 months pregnant with your child." Silence. Absolute, ringing silence. The bank manager slowly rose from the table. "Excuse me, do I understand correctly that this woman," he pointed to Jasmine, "is not Simone Davis?" "You understand correctly," I replied. "Simone Davis is me, and this," I looked at Jasmine, "is Jasmine Wells, 28, office manager for Evans Automotive, and my husband's mistress for the last 3 years." Jasmine sobbed. "I'm not to blame. He forced me. He said you were divorced, that you had agreed to all of this." "Take off my coat," I said. "What?" "Take off my coat. Now." With trembling hands, Jasmine unbuttoned it. The beige cashmere coat, my favorite, a birthday gift from Mom 3 years ago, fell to the floor. Without it, the illusion completely shattered. Before me stood just a young woman in an inappropriate dress, her makeup streaked with tears. And the bag and the watch and the earrings. She removed everything. "My belongings were stolen from my home to create an illusion. Now sit down and be quiet. If you're lucky, you'll walk out of here as a witness, not an accomplice." Tiffany tried to rush toward the exit, but Officer Jackson blocked her way. "These are private family matters," she yelled. "You have no right to detain me." "Tiffany," I smiled, and by the look on her face, I knew this smile terrified her. "What about the $800,000 you received in your account over the past year? Are those also private family matters?" Tiffany paled. Damon transferred that to me, for services. I'm a realtor. I helped with real estate." "What services, Tiffany? For finding an apartment for your brother's mistress? Or for helping him rob his wife and leave her with 3 children penniless?" Tiffany was silent. Her lips trembled, but no words came out. The door opened then, and my mother walked in. Damon immediately livened up. He saw an ally, his last hope. "Vivian, thank God. Tell them this is a misunderstanding. We discussed everything. You understand the situation." "Shut up," Mom said. Her voice trembled, but there was steel in it. The same Steele I remembered from childhood, when she defended me from neighborhood bullies, when she argued with teachers who gave me unfair grades. Damon froze, mouth open. Mom walked to the table and picked up the papers she had signed earlier. I, Vivian Hayes, declare that I signed these documents under false pretenses. I was told that my daughter was mentally unwell and incapable of managing her affairs. That is a lie. My daughter is the only sane person in this room. She turned to Damon. Tears were in her eyes, but her voice didn't waver. You told me you loved my daughter, that you were caring for my grandchildren, that you were doing all this for the family, and you lied to my face while supporting this. She looked at Jasmine with such contempt that the girl pressed herself further into the wall. Supporting this woman with my baby's money. Damon remained silent. His face turned gray, as if all the blood had been drained from it. I pulled out my phone. Good afternoon. This is Simone Davis. I am at Metropolitan Trust and Savings, downtown branch on Peachtree Street. There is an attempted grand larceny in progress using forged documents and a stand-in. I request that officers be dispatched immediately. Damon sprang up. Simone, you don't understand what you're doing. You're ruining our family. Think of the children. The children? I placed the phone on the table and looked at him. You want to talk about the children, Damon? The children you were planning to leave homeless? The children for whom you changed the beneficiary on my life insurance policy to yourself instead of them? He went even whiter. That was a mistake. What mistake, Damon? Which one? You planned this for 3 years. 3 years you transferred money to your sister's accounts. 3 years you supported a mistress. 3 years you laid the groundwork to declare me crazy and take everything. Simone, listen. No, Damon, you listen. For the first time in 12 years, you listen. I walked closer to him. He was a head taller than me, but now he seemed small. Pathetic. For 12 years, I was your wife. I bore you 3 children. I quit my career because you said family was more important. I didn't sleep at night. I stopped caring for myself. I lost all my friends because you isolated me. Why do you need friends? You have me. Why do you need a job? I make enough. Why do you need a nanny? You don't work. My voice was steady. I wasn't yelling. I spoke the way I used to speak in board meetings when presenting an analysis of a major deal. And all this time, you were sleeping with your office manager in an apartment you bought with my money, planning how to throw me out once she bored you less than I do. Simone, I love you. Don't you dare say that word. You don't know what it means. I stepped back. I was the best financial analyst in this city. I closed deals you wouldn't dream of. You thought you turned me into domestic help, that I forgot who I was. I looked him in the eye, those beautiful brown eyes that once seemed the most honest in the world. You woke the dragon, Damon, and now you have to pay. At that moment, the door opened and 2 police officers walked in. Who here is Damon Evans? Damon stood up on shaky legs, all his confidence, all his charm, all the polish of the successful businessman. It vanished. Before me stood only a frightened man who knew he had lost. You are being detained on suspicion of fraud. You have the right to remain silent. Everything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. As they led him away, he looked back at me one last time, and in his eyes, I saw something strange. Not malice, not hatred, but confusion. As if he still couldn't understand how it happened, how his perfect plan had collapsed. Tiffany was let out next. She was crying, shouting something about her lawyer and injustice, but no one listened. Jasmine remained sitting in the corner. They would deal with her later as a witness. I looked at her, a young, foolish girl who believed the pretty words of a married man. You still have a chance to build a normal life, I told her. Not with other women's husbands, not on other people's money. Think about that while you give your testimony. She nodded, sniffling. I didn't care if she understood or not. I had more important things to do. I spent the next 3 hours at the bank giving testimony, signing documents, and canceling all the operations they had managed to conduct. Lena, my lawyer friend, arrived within the hour and took over the legal part. Simone, she said when we were finally alone in the conference room, do you understand what's happening? I do. Damon is facing 5 to 10 years. Grand larceny, document forgery, using a stand-in. It's serious. I know. Tiffany won't get off easy either. Accomplice money laundering. Lena was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Are you okay?" I looked out the window. The autumn evening was getting dark early. Somewhere out there, in our house, my children were waiting for their mother. Ms. Carol Jenkins was probably worried sick. "No," I said honestly. "I'm not okay, but I will be. Just give me time." Mom was sitting in the hallway waiting for me. When I came out, she stood up and walked over. "Simone, I don't know how to apologize. I don't know if you can ever forgive me." "Mom," I took her hand, "this is not the time for this. I need to get home to the children, but we will talk, absolutely." She nodded, still crying. I hugged her, briefly but tightly. She was my mother, despite everything, and she had helped me at the decisive moment. The car drove me home through the evening streets. I watched the lights flash by and thought about how strangely life was constructed. In the morning, I was an exhausted mother of 3 who thought her biggest problem was an unslept baby and smeared oatmeal. By evening, I was a woman whose husband was sitting in a detention cell and whose entire life had been turned upside down. But I was alive. My children were with me. My assets were protected. And for the first time in years, I felt something like freedom. Strange, isn't it? Freedom from the person you thought was your family. At home, Ms. Carol Jenkins met me with worried eyes. "Simone, what happened? You were gone so long." "Long story, Carol. I'll tell you later. How are the kids?" "They're all asleep. Serenity fussed, but I rocked her. Elijah did his homework, and Nova watched cartoons. Everything's fine." I thanked her and saw her to the door, then went to the nursery. Elijah was asleep, arms flung wide, as always. Nova was curled up, hugging her stuffed bunny. Serenity was quietly breathing in her crib, tiny and defenseless. My children. I did what I did today for them. I sat on the edge of Elijah's bed and quietly said, "It's going to be okay. My babies, things will be different now. I promise." I barely slept that night. I sat in the kitchen, drinking tea, and thinking about the past 12 years that now felt like a stranger's life, about the present chaos I had to sort through, and about the future. Unknown, scary, but somehow no longer terrifying. I was no longer Damon Evans' wife. I was Simone Davis, mother of 3, financial analyst, a black woman who had just saved her life and the lives of her children. And this was only the beginning. 3 months is both an eternity and a blink of an eye. In those 3 months, I went through the hell of bureaucracy, court hearings, sleepless nights, and endless conversations with lawyers, investigators, and notaries. Every day brought new discoveries, and almost all of them were unpleasant. Damon, it turned out, hadn't lied to me for 3 years, but for 10. Even before Elijah was born, he started pulling money out of the business, creating shell companies, and accumulating debts that were later blamed on force majeure and a tough economy. I wasn't the first woman he'd used as a shield. Before me, there was some notary who had sensed trouble and escaped in time. The investigator, an older black man with tired eyes, told me once, "Ms. Davis, your husband is a professional con artist, not because he studied it, but because he has the talent. Lying, manipulating, creating illusions. You're not to blame for believing him. Everyone believed him." It wasn't comforting, but at least it explained things. The divorce was finalized quickly, given the circumstances. The court didn't drag it out. Damon sent an offer through his lawyer from the detention center to settle peacefully. He was willing to give up his claims to the children and the property in exchange for me withdrawing the charges. I refused. "It's not revenge," I explained to Lena when she asked if I was sure. "It's justice. He has to answer for what he did. Not just to me, but to everyone he cheated over the years." The trial for Damon and Tiffany was set for 4 months after the arrest. By then, new details had emerged. It turned out Tiffany wasn't just helping her brother. She was a full partner in his schemes, taking a percentage of every transaction. They found not $800,000, but nearly $1.5 million in her accounts. Some of it was just hidden in offshore accounts. Jasmine, as promised, testified as a witness. She spoke against Damon, telling how he taught her to copy my gait, my manner of speaking, how he chose my clothes and makeup for her. She cried during the questioning, said she loved him, and believed in a future together. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Her baby, a son, was born a month after the trial. Damon never saw him, and likely wouldn't for many years. The sentence was harsh. Damon received 7 years in a state correctional facility. Tiffany received 4 years suspended sentence with probation and forfeiture of the illegally acquired assets. The money she received from her brother had to be partially returned to me and partially to the creditors of Evans Automotive Group. I sat in the courtroom as the verdict was read, watching the man I had lived with for 12 years. He had aged in those months, looked drawn, his hair graying at the temples, his eyes dull. As they led him away, he looked back at me. I didn't look away, and I felt nothing. No pity, no glee, just emptiness. That, I guess, is the end of love. Not hatred, not pain, just nothing. After the trial, Mom came up to me. We had seen each other regularly during these months. She helped with the children, driving in from her city on weekends, staying a week when I needed to be in court or with the investigator. We talked a lot. Hard, honest conversations about why she believed Damon, why she always valued his opinion over mine, why she was happy when I settled down and gave up my career. "I was jealous of you," she admitted once. "You were so smart, so successful. You had everything I never had. And when you married, had children, and became just an ordinary woman, I felt safer." She paused. "I know it's awful, but it's the truth." I didn't know what to say, but I appreciated her honesty. It was more than I'd received from her my entire life. "Mom," I told her after the trial, "I don't hold a grudge against you. You made a mistake, but you fixed it when it mattered. That's enough." She cried. We hugged right there in the courthouse hallway among strangers and institutional walls. And I felt something old lift inside me. The years of resentment I had carried without admitting it, even to myself. I sold the house on 42nd Street. Too many memories, too many lies had seeped into those walls. I bought another one, smaller, but in a good neighborhood, close to Elijah's school and Nova's daycare. A 3-bedroom with a big kitchen and a balcony overlooking a courtyard with a playground. The move was chaotic. The children were cranky. Serenity had just started crawling and tried to get into every box. Elijah missed his old room. Nova demanded that her bed be placed exactly as it was before. But we managed. We always manage. On the first morning in the new house, I woke up before everyone else. I brewed coffee and went out onto the balcony. I watched the city wake up, lights turning on in neighboring buildings, the first cars pulling out of driveways, the superintendent sweeping the walkways. This was my city, my life, my morning. And for the first time in many years, it belonged only to me. I returned to work 6 months after that day at the bank. Serenity had turned 1. I found a great nanny, a young woman named Brenda, a teaching student who was working with kids to pay her way. She came for half the day while I was at the office and stayed later if I needed to work late. My former boss, Mr. Robert Sterling, called me himself when he heard about my situation from mutual acquaintances. In our world, everyone knows everything, of course. "Simone, I always said you were the best analyst in the city. Come back, any conditions you name." I named my conditions: flexible hours, the option to work from home 2 days a week, no business trips longer than 48 hours, and a salary 30% higher than I had 3 years ago. He agreed without negotiation. The first day back at work felt strange. I stood in front of the hall mirror in a business suit with a neat hairstyle and light makeup and didn't recognize myself. Not the exhausted woman in the wrinkled t-shirt who had stormed the bank 6 months ago, and not the successful career woman I had been before the babies, but someone new, someone who had been through the fire and emerged a different person. "Mommy, you look pretty," Elijah said, peering into the hall. "Thank you, son. Are you going to work?" "Yes, that's good," he said seriously. Dad said work is important, that you have to be, what is it? Independent. Independent. Yes, independent. You'll be independent now, Mommy. I crouched down in front of him, looking into his serious 7-year-old eyes. Yes, son. I will be independent, and you will grow up to be independent too. But truly independent, not like your father. A truly independent person doesn't lie to others and doesn't live off other people. They work honestly and take responsibility for their actions. Do you understand? Elijah nodded. Did he understand? I don't know. But the seeds were planted. The rest is just a matter of time. The children adapted differently. Elijah, the best of all. He was old enough to know Dad did something bad, but young enough not to dig into the details. He missed him, sometimes asking when Dad would be back, but he accepted my answers about not for a very long time, without hysterics. Nova was harder. Daddy's girl, she adored Damon, and his disappearance hit her the hardest. The first month, she woke up screaming at night, demanded Daddy, and refused to eat. I had to take her to a child psychologist, Dr. Anya Sharma, a gentle woman who knew how to connect with children. Now, 6 months later, Nova no longer wakes up screaming. She still sometimes asks about Dad, but less often. And she started reaching out to me for the first time in her 4 years. Before, I was something of a serving person to her. Feed, dress, take to daycare. Now, she runs to hug me, asks me to read her a story before bed, and draws pictures for Mom. It was worth everything. Serenity, thank God, was too small to understand anything. To her, Daddy is just a word not connected to a specific person. She grew, started walking, and said her first word, Mama. Of course. In her world, everything was correct and good. Aisha became my friend, a genuine, steadfast friend. We met once a week for coffee, talking, sometimes just sitting in silence together. She told me about her life, her complicated relationship with her mother, a failed romance with a colleague, and her dream of starting her own business. You saved me twice, she said once. The first time 5 years ago, when you proved I wasn't a thief. The second, when you showed me that you don't have to give up even when the whole world is against you. You saved me too, I replied. If you hadn't called that day. We didn't finish the thought. We didn't need to. Sometimes I thought about Damon, not with longing or anger, but just thought, trying to understand when exactly things went wrong. Was he like this from the beginning, and I just didn't see it? Or did something break along the way? There was no answer, and there probably never would be. Some things remain a mystery forever. People, even more so. He wrote to me from prison, not often, once a month, sometimes less. The letters were varied, sometimes penitent, sometimes accusatory, sometimes just sad. I read them all. I don't know why. Maybe I was looking for something. Traces of the man I once loved. I didn't find them. The last letter came 3 weeks ago. Damon wrote that he understood his mistakes, that he had changed, and that after his release, he wanted to start over. Not with me. He no longer asked for that, but to be a good father to the children. I didn't answer, not because I wanted to punish him with silence. I simply had nothing to say. We had become strangers, if we were ever close at all. One evening, after putting the children to bed, I sat on the balcony with a glass of wine and looked out at the city. The lights, the cars, the life. Everything continued, despite everything. I am 40 years old. I am a divorced mother of 3. I work 50 hours a week and still barely keep up with all the chores. I have no time for a personal life, no energy for hobbies, no opportunity to just sleep in. And I am happy. It sounds strange, I know, but it's true. I am happy because my life is mine, because the decisions I make are my decisions, because the money I earn is my money, because I wake up in the morning and know that no one is cheating me, using me, or planning things behind my back. This is freedom. Genuine, hard-won, earned freedom. My phone rang. It was Mom. Simone, did I wake you? I wanted to check in. Everything's fine, Mom. The kids are asleep. I'm sitting on the balcony looking at the city, alone, and I feel good. A pause. Then Mom said quietly, almost a whisper, "I'm proud of you, baby girl. Very proud." I smiled. The first time in 40 years I had heard those words from her. "Thank you, Mom. Good night." I hung up and looked at the city again. My city, my life. Tomorrow will be a new day. Wake up at 6 o'clock. Breakfast, school, work, dinner, bedtime story, sleep, and again, an ordinary life, an ordinary woman. But this ordinary life is mine, and I will never give it up to anyone, ever again. Simone's story is about how easy it is to lose yourself in love, in motherhood, in trust for a loved one. It's a story about how years can pass unnoticed while you live a stranger's life, fulfilling a stranger's desires, believing a stranger's words. But it is also a story about finding yourself anew at any age, under any circumstances, with any number of children in your arms. Because inside every one of us lives the woman we once were, strong, smart, capable of anything. She never leaves. She just waits for us to call her. Simone wasn't weak. She was tired. She wasn't foolish. She was trusting. And when the time came to defend herself and her children, she did so with the same force she once used to build her career. The ending of this story is not a fairy tale. There is no prince on a white horse, no magical happily ever after. There is just a woman who wakes up every day and lives her life. Hard, ordinary, real. And that is, perhaps, the most honest ending possible. If you liked my story and want to hear more, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. If you'd like to support me, you can do it through Super Thanks. It would mean a lot. In the comments, tell me which city you're watching from and what time it is so I can see how far my story reaches. I've added 2 more life stories on the screen just for you. Click one now and let's keep spending time together. Much love, see you soon.